Hey everyone, this is Alicia Castaneda of Ritual Coaching, and today I'm speaking with fitness consultant Jorden Pagel, and we're going to be talking about the components of a long-term body transformation. So what goes in on the mindset side, and then what you need to do on the fitness and nutrition side to ensure that you can maintain consistency for the long term, and that even after you've gotten the results that you want, that you can maintain those for a long time. And I'm going to let Jorden tell his story first. So Jorden, how did you get into this world? Where did you start?
Yeah, so first off, thanks for doing this. I think it's gonna be fun. I got into fitness. I was always kind of athletic growing up, and by athletic I mean I played sports. I was overweight pretty much most of the first 22, 23 years of my life. I kind of dabbled in like working out and exercise and eating better, through my teenage years and through college, but nothing ever really stuck. So when I moved back home after college, didn't really have a whole lot to do. So I just kind of started, I'm like, I'm going to try this getting in shape thing, one more time. There was a girl I was had a crush on at the time, and I kind of thought like, oh yeah, I'm going to start getting in shape. Because of that. So I started going to the gym and basically was doing just the same things that I had tried before: long hours of cardio, occasional weightlifting. By weightlifting, I mean like bench press and bicep curls. The difference this time and why I really started to see results is I actually stuck with it, because other than working, I didn't really have a whole lot else to do. I was living in a small town. All my friends had moved away, so I wasn't going out much or anything like that. So I just ended up sticking with it consistently and, just being more active. I slowly started to see results, and hanging around the gym, getting to know some of the other people there. I started picking up on some of the things that they were doing. The guy gave me a very basic rudimentary weightlifting program that I probably would not recommend to anybody now, but back then it was something that I started doing consistently, and from there my results started getting even better. I got stronger. I could finally start to see some muscle definition, and that really kind of led me down the rabbit hole to start doing my own research about fitness and training and nutrition. And for a while I did it by myself, started applying what I learned, started seeing even better results, and it got to the point where I figured out, there are people that coach this, that do this for a living. So I hired a coach, and continued to get better results and learn more about training and nutrition. And that's really what prompted me to get into fitness. And I think when it was all said and done, I lost about 80 pounds from my heaviest, put on probably like 20, 25 pounds of muscle over that process too, about 4 or 5 years. And now I'm, helping people do the same. So that's kind of my background over the last, almost decade now. I know we've talked about how you got started. It's kind of a stark contrast from the way I got started, right?
Yeah. So I was, we'll call it manipulating my diet much earlier than I had actually started exercising. So back when I was around 13 was the first time that I started restricting food. And my idea of that was to skip lunch and have a swim fast instead. And so this turned into restricting more and more food, which led me to then start binge eating. And as I went through my teenage years and into my early 20s, the cycle of binging and restricting just got worse and worse. And so it went from skipping meals to deciding that I needed to start running. And so I'd run for a couple of miles, and then I would have like an entire box of spaghetti. And then I would feel horrible about myself. And I didn't realize that there was really anything wrong with this, because I just thought, this is how you diet. You just have to eat very little food. And I thought if I could just push through and stop the binges, that I would be able to lose weight. And so what happened was, because I couldn't stop binging, I gained and gained and gained. And I would just go to my first experience in a gym was to just go in and run on the treadmill for an hour. And I thought that was
Hmm.
how to work out. And
Hmm.
I had a roommate at the time that showed me a couple of things as far as lifting weights was concerned, but nothing really stuck. I had no idea what I was doing. And I would also disappear from the gym for months at a time. I had no real consistency in that. And then once I'd gained about 30 pounds when I was 25, I believe. I got it in my head that I wanted to do a bodybuilding competition. I wanted to do a bikini competition because I thought if I have this real hard incentive, I'll be able to lose the weight. And so I started training for that. I hired a coach initially just to lose weight, and he was able to coach me into my first competition. I started seriously lifting weights. It was the first time I had ever been really consistent with it. And I did end up losing some weight, but it triggered we'll call it what it is, triggered my bulimia so bad that I was throwing up and just I felt better about my body, but just it was like a shitstorm in my head. And as
Hmm.
soon as the competition ended, I just started binging and binging and binging. I was able to stop purging, but I put on a lot of weight really quickly. And then a couple months later, I decided, how am I going to get this weight off? Let me do another competition. So that led me into my second competition, except that I didn't lose as much weight this time. And afterwards, I immediately gained another 30 pounds within months. And I felt really, really awful about my body. And I was still in this cycle of I'll go to the gym for a couple of months and I'll train for this and then to stop going. And so I had no real consistency until months after that second competition, and I decided I'll take it slow and steady. I'm not gonna. I wanted to get the weight off, but
Hmm.
I knew that rushing into something and putting a lot of pressure on myself wasn't going to get me long-term results. And so I just decided this time I'll take it slow. I'll let it happen, and I'll just go to the gym no matter what. And part of my inconsistency was just struggling with my mental health. And so once I actually started prioritizing health, was rather than my weight and my body, was when the consistency happened.
Hmm. I think that last point there is so important because that's what I really try to focus on and instill with clients is that it has to be your health first. Like, yes, losing weight will make you healthier, but as you just talked about, you can certainly lose weight and still be unhealthy. And if you're not prioritizing your health, you're no matter how much weight you lose, you're probably not going to maintain that or be in really a great position with your health moving forward. So I think that's really, really important.
Oh yeah. And that's one of the things that I love about the things that you write about, the things that you talk about is prioritizing health because of how important that is, not only for your health, but for your results too. So
Hmm.
I wanted to ask, what are some things that either you did right or that you see, or maybe that you did wrong, or that you see other people doing wrong that um, in terms of training and nutrition that you would recommend to someone who is looking to get those long-term results?
Yeah, so I think kind of starting out, well, what I was doing, the way I was going about it, as far as terms or like modes of exercise, like just strictly doing cardio, um, is wrong. I think we both know that if you not necessarily wrong, but if you want to lose weight and get in better shape overall, prioritizing strength training
Mhm.
along with nutrition is going to be most important. But I wasn't doing either of those right away. But what I was doing that I think helped me succeed is I wasn't trying to do more than I was capable of. Like I worked back then, I was working long hours in the summer, sometimes, 11, 12 hours. I just focused on getting to the gym when I could. When I was there, I was just focused on doing what I could. And I think that's kind of in stark contrast to what I see nowadays from a lot of people, which they have the best of intentions, getting to the gym as often as they can, doing as much as they can. That's great. But, I think that nowadays there's a shift in that a lot of people are trying to do too much. They're trying to go to the gym 6 to 7 days a week for 2 hours at a time. And not only is your body not going to be able to keep up with that for very long, like mentally, that can be very stressful. Like, I know you're busy, I'm busy. A lot of clients I deal with have jobs, they have families, and 6, 7 days a week working out for an hour or two every single day, that is a lot of time. And people kind of get into this trap, well, if I'm not doing more, I'm not seeing results. And when life inevitably does get in the way, and they start missing gym days or start becoming inconsistent, they let that stress them out. That stress leads to more inconsistency, to giving up, to feeling like a failure. And I think nowadays, a lot of the problem is when it comes to training or even nutrition is trying to go too extreme, trying to bite off more than they can chew, instead of just, what I do with clients is look at the schedule. Okay, say, hey, what is the minimum effective dose that we can fit into your schedule to help you get the results you want, but also not take over your life at the same time?
Yeah. Is there something that you would recommend as a minimum effective dose, not knowing someone's schedule? So if there is anyone listening that's saying, okay, I know that I can't and don't want to go 6, 7 days a week,
Mhm.
what would be a more realistic expectation to set for themselves?
I mean, majority of my clients, probably 90%, especially when they're just starting out or they're looking to lose body fat or just get in better shape, I really don't have them in the gym more than 3 to 4 days per week for an hour at most. And the important thing to remember when, especially when it comes to weight loss is, what you do out, you're only in the gym for an hour. It doesn't matter if that's 2 days a week or 4 days a week. That's a very small amount of your time. It's what you do outside of the gym that is going to have a bigger impact on your results. That comes down to, managing your nutrition well. But as far as, getting started in the gym, 2, 3, 4 days a week, strength training for about an hour, that's really all a majority of beginners, people who are intermediate, people who are just starting out, that's really all you need.
I think that sounds much more reasonable. What about for yourself when you're just kind of maintaining your physique? Like, what would you do? What's your schedule like?
Um, I think my view on this has definitely changed in the last year because I've done a lot of traveling. I My girlfriend lived in New York, and then she moved back home to California for the summer. Now she's in Colorado going to school. So I was traveling quite a bit because luckily my schedule allows me to do that. So, I have found that, for me, the minimum effective dose can be 2 to 3 times per week. It's not how many times you're in the gym, but it's what you're doing in the gym. And if you're making the most out of those 2 to 3 hours per week, you don't need more than that to, kind of say, hey, maintain your level of fitness, maintain where you're at. But that also comes with too, you have to manage your expectations. And if you can only get to the gym twice per week or 3 times per week, you have to manage your expectations elsewhere. You have to, know that, okay, my nutrition has to be good. My sleep, my recovery, all that kind of stuff has to be good. So it really, the what you need to do in the gym, I found, is far less than what most people think it is because, be it, I'm not hating on CrossFit. I have a lot of CrossFit clients. CrossFit is great, but that kind of mentality of you have to do something every day, you have to go all out, balls to the wall, has really been one of the things I feel that has hurt people's results more than it's helped them long term.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's really reassuring to hear that like 2, 3, like we're talking 3 hours of training a week. Like that's much more manageable for
Hmm.
I think most people who, like you said, have very, very busy lives between work, family, all our other obligations. So let's talk a little bit about consistency because that's really going to be our main point throughout this conversation. I think just thinking of it as a minimum effective dose is already going to help people be able to, like we said, make it more manageable in their
Mhm.
schedules, so that something is very practical. What do you see a lot of people struggling with in terms of not being able to make it to the gym?
I think, you know, life for a lot of my clients, they, travel for work or stuff like that. They have family events, working long hours, working a busy schedule. You know, it's the stuff a lot of us deal with. You and I run our own businesses. We work long hours, and we both travel quite a bit. Um, there's a lot of things that come up that affect consistency, and really, what it comes down to, I think, is one, not beating yourself up for not being consistent,
Mhm.
because that just kind of compounds, right? That, you make it to the gym, then you get stressed and frustrated and pissed off that you didn't make it to the gym, and something comes up the next day, and then you get more stressed and more pissed off. And it's just, understand that your results don't hinge on any one workout. They don't hinge on any one meal. They don't even hinge on any one week. I've had weeks where I didn't train at all. And honestly, a lot of times, especially when you're stressed out or going through a lot, that's better for your body. You're giving your body that break from the stress of training. I think not beating yourself up over being inconsistent is one of the keys to actually staying consistent, because like, hey, I missed a gym day. I'm not failing. I'm not ruining my progress. Something happened. I can pick it right back up tomorrow or the next day or next week when I get back home. And I know you know, with the mindset stuff, I really think that that's where it starts. Any kind of consistency is, you know, not just how you look at things, right?
Right. And the first thing that I thought when you were describing that was, if you're not beating yourself up for missing a workout, each time that you do that, it's just tying negativity to the whole process of working out.
Yeah.
And if you can just, release that stress and anxiety and just be able to move on with things, because for a lot of people, the more that they increase that stress and anxiety over whether it's missing a workout or anything else in their life, that's what can trigger a lot of people to then stress eat, which is
Mhm.
obviously not it's going to be counterproductive to results. It's a form of self-sabotage. And so one of the things that I talk about a lot, in terms of maintaining that consistency and not beating yourself up for it, is to exercise self-compassion. And self-compassion, I know it's one of those like soft and fuzzy words, but it's not, because we all need to have it. And
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be, telling yourself like, I love you, it's okay. It doesn't have to be anything that doesn't feel genuine to you. It can be something as simple as like, hey, it's okay. Everybody misses a workout once in a while. Let's look at your schedule and see where we can either fit something in, or the next time that you have one scheduled, we're going to really make it, really try to hit that. And
Mhm.
so it doesn't have to be something that's like self-compassion. It can be something as simple as just reminding yourself that's okay. And like you said, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to ruin all of your progress. And self-compassion is something that is an antidote to that all or nothing thinking, that thinking I have to do every workout on my program as written, and if I don't do it, I'm not going to get results, because it's not
Mhm.
true. And another thing that I wanted to mention, just in terms of consistency, that I was kind of thinking about earlier today, was the way that people think, the way that people who have established a gym routine in their schedule is very
Mhm.
different from someone who hasn't. So someone who's already established the habit is going to be thinking, okay, I go to work, I train, and then I have X number of hours left in my day to do whatever I want.
Mhm.
Or they're thinking, I wake up and train and do all these other things. And so they're just thinking about their day in terms of, okay, I go to the gym, I still have 4 hours to myself in the evening.
Mhm.
Whereas one of the things, and I wanted to ask if you see this in your clients, is thinking, okay, I have 6 hours to myself in the evening, and if I go to the gym, that's going to be taking 2 of them away. So rather than thinking, I have this much time and the gym is taking this much away, someone who's established the habit is just thinking, this is something that I do, and I only
Mhm.
have 4 hours. because this is just something that I do. So it's not actually taking anything away because they've already ingrained it as something that is just a part of their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas someone who hasn't established it as something more of a permanent fixture in their lives is thinking about it as taking away from other things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think kind of going back to when you talk about like the schedule, like I think that's, and this is a mindset thing, is that it's treating, especially going to the gym, treating it like an appointment on your calendar, treating it like something that, as just a regular part of your day or a regular part of your week. In I think something I talk about with clients is schedule your training. Like take a look at your, especially with the clients who, are busy with work and stuff like that, or they have like kids and they have all the schedule, like make sure that when you're looking at your week, that you are planning when you're going to the gym, planning that time to essentially you're taking care of yourself is what you're doing. And, if you look at, I would say, do you look at taking care of yourself as a negative? That's something like, oh, I have to take care of myself today.
Yeah,
Like, I think that it's like you going back to that taking the negativity away from it. Like, there are a lot of people out there who don't get to go to the gym because, maybe they are, sick or disabled or stuff like that. Like being active, that is something that you get to do. You get to take care of yourself. You get to get stronger. You get to get in better shape. And I think, like you kind of said, like taking that negativity away from it, and treating it as like just a normal part of your life, it's a big mindset shift. And like I said, it kind of all starts up here and trickles down.
yeah, it's not a task. It's not, okay, I just have to put this on my to-do list because I know I'm supposed to do it. When you bring up self-care, that's something that is so, so, so important to me. And when other people think about it, a lot of times it's like, well, this is just a task that I have to do, rather than thinking of it not only, like you said, kind of as a privilege. Like, I am able-bodied enough to do this. I am living in a world where I can just walk into a gym and get a workout. And not only is it a privilege, but it's a responsibility, because truly you will fall apart without it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody has experienced that to some level or another, that falling apart, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
things going wrong with your body or just not feeling as good as you could mentally. And
Mm-hmm.
so self-care really is something that has to be a priority.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think we kind of talked about this a little bit before the call, is that, like, you have people who, whether you take care of your family or you run a team at work or whatever, like how you take care of yourself impacts your ability to take care of others. Because if you're tired, if you have low energy, if you're not eating correctly, if you're not taking care of yourself, your ability to show up as somebody other people need help to take care of themselves, like that, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to have the energy to, play with your kids or whatever it might be. You need to be able to take care of yourself. If you pride yourself on somebody who takes care of others, who takes care of his family, who is great at their job, you need to start by taking care of yourself first before you can take care of those other things.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also affects self-worth as well, because if you're not taking care of yourself, then you kind of know it in the back of your mind, and you're going, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not someone who takes care of myself. And you ingrain that as, well, I just don't care about myself. And that's just, I mean, that's a terrible feeling to have. And it's something
Mm-hmm.
that really needs to be built back up. And things like diet and exercise can really help you to rebuild that relationship with yourself, and that
Mm-hmm.
self-trust and that self-care can kind of rebuild your self-worth, which I think a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah, and I think another thing too that a lot of people, probably don't realize, because they may not be eating right, they may not be getting enough sleep, or whatever, is there is a stark difference in how you feel once you start taking care of yourself. And then maybe you have a bad day where you don't get sleep, or you eat like crap, or you drink a bunch and you feel the effects of that. I'm like, whoa, this is how like I felt all the time before I started taking care of myself. And I can't tell you the amount of times I've had clients say like, wow, I can't believe that this is the way I used to eat. Like this is what I used to do, because it's like one day of it or a weekend and I feel terrible compared to how I feel when I am taking care of myself, when I am getting enough sleep, when I am, eating enough vegetables and the right amount of nutrients that my body craves and needs.
Yeah, and we just acclimate to it to
Yeah.
feel bad.
Yeah. And like you said, you don't even really know that you aren't feeling as good as you could be.
Mm. Is there anything else that your clients really struggle with?
Yeah, I feel like especially kind of in the beginning for those people who like this is something very different than they're used to in their schedule, in their lifestyle, is making that mindset shift to like, okay, I really am going to have to change how I eat. I'm really going to have to kind of change my schedule around to make sure that I can get to the gym a couple times. What with your clients when you're talking about like making that big of a mindset shift, like stark contrast from what the lives they were living before, like what are some of the things that you kind of work on to help them make that something more manageable?
You mean to kind of just adapt to eating new foods and performing new actions?
Yeah, like something like, say somebody who had never counted their macros, they eat out almost every single day. Like all of a sudden, you're gonna have to cut back on eating out. You're gonna have to start making your meals more at home, because that's how you're going to, get better food, see better results. How do you kind of help people with those kind of larger, or what seem like very large shifts in their lifestyle, in their mindset?
Yeah, so that's something that actually ties in nicely to what we were just talking about, which was self-care, because I don't like to tell people what to do unless they
Hmm.
ask me to. And so if I have someone come to me, for example, I have someone that I've been working with for a couple of months now, and we're focusing primarily on his relationship with himself, his relationship with his body, and his relationship with food. And coming from someone who was eating out every single meal 7 days a week, I didn't say anything about that aside from, like I said, his relationship with himself, his body, and his food. And gradually he's come around to saying, you know what, I want to try cooking a meal at home. To now we're at a point where he says, I want to cook 7 meals from home this week. I want to started listening to his hunger cues and eating less. And so something that you do, which is where you kind of ease people, saying you were easing people into workouts, is the kind of the same thing that we've been doing, which is just rather than saying you need to do all of these things differently now, just become a new person, is really easing into that transformation and having it all come from a place of, I'm taking care of my body because I really care about myself. And these are the things, recognizing these are the things that make me feel good. And these are the things, so that motivation is really internal. It's really coming from, this is how I want to take care of my body. And then having those changes, having the weight come off from those healthier habits, rather than saying you need to do this and that and the other thing, unless we get to a point where he says, all right, things are stalled, tell me what to do.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I think kind of like, especially starting out, if somebody is feeling overwhelmed, is breaking it down into those, those small chunks,
Hmm.
and kind of like, say what is going to be the most manageable for you today. And this is something that I do with people who are extremely busy or have periods where they're really stressed out or something like that. Is like, okay, what is one thing that you feel, and this is a question I ask, is like, what is one thing you can do with your nutrition, or what is one thing you can do with your exercise today that that you can accomplish? And
Right. Yeah.
it's like building up those small victories that help you instill what are ultimately the habits you need to make those long-term successful changes. Because I think, like you said, if you're just telling somebody what to do, that can work for some people, and it works. There's certain people who I work with who that works great. Just like, tell me what to do, they execute it like a machine. But most people aren't really like that, and it's like you said, kind of making it a more manageable task that ultimately is leading them in the right direction, teaching them how actually easy it is to make these changes when you kind of look at them individually, when you go slow, that lead to, making those bigger changes, cooking all your meals at home, and then having that self-realization that, okay, what I'm doing now isn't working. What can I change to improve my results?
Yeah, and there are two things that I would add to that in terms of making those small steps. And one of them is that, for better or for worse, like, even if we know that we have bad habits, we're pretty attached to who we are. And so
Yeah.
most people don't want to, even if they think, it would be so nice to just be a different person with all these healthy habits. If once we actually start doing that, we can keep it up. I mean, and I'm sure you've seen it, people that make these massive changes, keep it up for a week or two, and then just go, I can't do this, because we are really attached to who we are and what we do. And so making those small incremental changes helps us to really transform, rather
Hmm.
than just flick a switch and then have it flick back 2 weeks later. The other thing is self-trust. Like, when you say, take one thing that you know that you can do, and then do it, that's something that builds self-trust, rather than
Hmm.
saying, these are the 7 things that I have to do for myself today, getting to the end of the day and feeling so overwhelmed that you haven't done any of them, and then getting really down on yourself and feeling like a
Hmm.
failure. So yeah, I really strongly promote that idea of just little bite small steps.
For sure. For sure.
Tiny goals.
Yes. Tiny goals.
Yeah.
So one thing that I kind of, I've experienced, not just with myself, but with a lot of clients is, helping getting through the stress of maybe a big schedule change or a big lifestyle change or something like that. Like, you move, I know you just moved recently. Like, how does that affect your schedule, your consistency, your mindset, and then, like, kind of how do you get yourself through that or over the hump in order to, like we talked about earlier, stay consistent?
Yeah, I would say the primary thing is to reset your expectations. And so my big move was moving from the US to the Netherlands. So big international move. And in the midst of that, I had 2 launches that I was just trying to keep all the pieces together for.
Mm-hmm.
And and really, what I had to do was completely reset my expectations and say, I'm working much more than usual. I'm in a place that I'm totally unfamiliar with. And so there are inevitably going to be some stressors with that. And my tiny goal was to work out once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I know it would be better for me to do 2, 3, 4 days a week. I would love to, but what can I do in reality? I have a pretty light day on Mondays. I'm going to go to the gym on Monday, get my training session in, do a full body workout. And then the rest of the days, I'm going to take some long walks with my dog. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's been enough for me. Maybe not to, maybe it's not the ideal thing for me to be doing in terms of keeping up my muscle mass. Maybe it would
Yeah.
be better for me to do 2 or 3 days, but it's just not realistic right now. And I can't hold
Mm-hmm.
myself to that standard and say, I have to get 3 workouts in this week, and then feel like I'm failing myself when it doesn't happen.
Right.
Because what I can do now is I go once a week, and then if I have some extra time on Friday and I get a second workout and, like, oh, cool, like, throw myself a little party. Um,
Yeah.
but but yeah, I would say it's resetting expectations. And I think that's something that you had to experience as well when you were traveling. Is maybe you had a certain idea that, okay, I'm traveling, but I can get to I still get like this many workouts in, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
it didn't happen.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. It's I think kind of overarching theme there is managing your expectations. I think so much of people's struggles, people giving up, their failures, whatever you want to call it, come from unrealistic expectations of ourselves and the process going in. And, we see these dramatic, talking about weight loss or something like that, we see these dramatic results promised all over on the internet, on marketing, unrealistic expectations on Instagram. I think people kind of have a misunderstanding of what realistic expectations are about, true body transformations. Like, I lost 80 pounds. That took me probably about 4 years, because, life happened, inconsistencies. Like, there are always going to be things that pop up in life that make it difficult. We're not all bodybuilders who can eat, sleep, and train,
Yeah.
and that's it. We have lives, we have families, relationships. Like, you have to understand that it's probably going to take you longer than you think it's going to, and that you want it to. But that's actually in your benefit, because it's during that process that you start to learn and build the habits that are going to help you sustain those transformations long term. Because if you crash diet and lose 30 pounds in the next month, okay, great. What are you doing after that? Like,
Right.
are you going to go back to doing?
That's exactly what happened after my second bodybuilding show, and I put on 30 pounds. It took me 2 years to lose 30 pounds. And I could be sitting here beating myself up saying, holy shit, what took you so long? What were you doing that whole time? Well, I was living, I was balancing my life with weight loss. I wasn't starving myself for once. I was actually working out consistently, and I was having meals out with my boyfriend. Like, I'm perfectly happy with having lost 30 pounds in a way that felt easy to me, in a way that felt sustainable to me, and in a way that I know that they're not gonna come back. And that is so much more valuable than having lost them in a couple of months and then feeling terrible about myself, feeling hungry, feeling cravings, and worrying constantly, when it's gonna come back.
Yeah, and going back to like what we talked about earlier, that's just so much healthier for you, in the short term and the long term. Because cycling, what a lot of people do is they lose a bunch of weight overnight and then slowly gain it back. And then 6 months later, they realize, oh, I gained all this weight back. Now I'm going to, take it all off in a month again. And that's just not something healthy mentally. And it's not something that is healthy for your body either. And it's, those slow and steady progress is the best progress, because like I said, not only is that healthiest, but that's how you get to enjoy life. That's how you learn what you need to not have to continue to lose the same 20, 30 pounds over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I think another thing that would be good to talk about, since I know it's had an impact on both of our lives, not just personally, but professionally as well, is coaching. Because we're both coaches. We've both had coaches. What are some of the ways that having a coach has impacted you, your mindset, your career, your life?
My first weight loss success was when I hired a coach. And by success, I mean feeling like I was in control of my body. And so although it wasn't I was still having some issues with disordered eating, I understood weight loss in a very concrete scientific way, because he was the first person that ever taught me about counting calories and what does it take to actually put on or lose a pound of fat, being able to really accurately track my food. Why are protein, carbs, fat, like why are these things important? And I really got down the basics of nutrition, which was what initially got me interested in nutrition science. And I felt so much accountability and support from that it was completely different from doing it on my own. When I had a question, which was all the time, I had someone that I could just ask and say, and especially the most valuable part of having a coach for me, and even now, still working with a coach, is being able to say, hey, is this going well? Should I push? Should I stay? someone, just having someone to like pat me on the back and say you're doing a good job
Hmm.
is, it sounds silly, but it's such an important part of the process for me. And being able to, when I do want to rush things, having them say, you're okay,
Hmm.
things are okay, let's stay here and just take it slow. Sometimes I still need to be, have someone just, pull the reins and say things are good. My first nutrition and fitness coach was also the one that got me into weightlifting, and part of the reason why it started to stick and why I was able to work through into that first bodybuilding competition, was because he talked so much about habits.
Hmm.
And that was something that really, really stuck with me. Was there are certain steps that I can take. I can look at this as a skill that I can build, rather than just, I'm someone that has no willpower, I'm weak, I'll never be able to do this.
Yeah.
He was able to show me that, like, no, you can learn these things, you can learn this as a skill. And that really clicked with me, because I was a musician. I had just gotten out of music school, and I was like, okay, if I can learn how to play the violin, I can learn how to lose weight.
Hmm.
That was something that was so fascinating to me. And one of the things that really sparked my interest with being able to pass this on to other people and say, no matter how many times you have failed at this before, you can learn it as a skill. And all
Hmm.
you have to do is practice it. And that's where the idea of failure and inconsistency comes to mind. Is this is something that if you haven't done it successfully already, you will have failures. You will fail at it. You might fail to stick to your diet. You might fail to go to the gym, but it's something that if you continue to practice, you'll get better at it and just become so much more natural over time. And that's
Hmm.
something that really resonated with me, because I had this mentality that I was just weak, that I didn't have enough willpower to lose weight, and
Hmm.
really turned me into such a victim. And so having a coach that was able to show me that wasn't the case, and that I wouldn't be stuck in that body forever, was so freeing. And that's one of my favorite things to be able to teach other people, is how much control they have.
Yeah, no, I think that's huge. And I think that really is one of the biggest benefits to having coaches, you know, understanding that, when you're on the right path, like you do have control over this stuff. And that, I think, for a lot of people, me especially, even I have a coach now, it just kind of like takes that weight and that stress off of your plate of like having to figure out yet another thing, having to be in complete uh, decision, having to make these decisions about yet another thing in your life. How you're going to train, how often you're going to train, what exercises you're going to do, what should I be eating, what should my, like, how many times a day should I eat, all that kind of stuff that people over and over and over again have these questions about, that, I'm sure we both seen them time and time again. It's just having somebody to take care of all that for you and take away that stress of constantly wondering, am I doing the right thing? Am I focusing on the right thing? Is there something I'm not doing that I should be doing? And then also, I think that we all have a very kind of skewed view of ourselves, in that we, what applies to others doesn't always apply to us. And one of the things I think about having a coach is that it's like keeping you focused on the right things. Like you said, telling you when you should push, when you should pull back, like helping you get out of your head when you feel like, oh, I haven't lost any weight on the scale today. Well, I can't say this week, and I can't say how many times like I've had somebody say that to me. And then I'd be like, well, but your pictures you're looking a lot leaner. You're looking a lot more muscular. Your average weight this week was lower than it was last week. It's having somebody who can take that 30,000 foot unbiased view of your progress, of what you're doing, and give you the absolute best unbiased direction about what you need to focus on. Because I think, like you said, we try to focus on it ourselves, and we keep thinking like, oh, I can train 6 days a week, or I can do this, or I'm going to add this, and we just kind of piece together too much. We kind of get overwhelmed with all the knowledge and end up kind of just going nowhere. But when you have somebody who can give you that direction and guidance, and like you said, accountability, that when you do have a question, when you are frustrated with something, or you just want to learn, like you have somebody who you can turn to right away and help you out with
Oh yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I love having that too, because so often with my own pictures, still I would pick myself apart and say
that.
nothing's happening, and I would send them to my coach, and he would say, "Great job, you're looking leaner." And
Yeah.
just in my head, I would never write him back and go like, "I don't know what you're talking about," but in my head I'd be going like, "I don't know what he sees, but I know that he's the expert, and
Right. Yeah.
I trust him." Like like you said, I don't have an unbiased view of myself, and same thing as far as determining my own training schedule. I often would like to push myself harder than I have the capacity for, and
Hmm.
and that's just saved me to have someone that pulls me back sometimes.
Yeah. And like I had a client ask me last week, he was like, hey, and what are some resources that you use to like create training programs I want to learn? And I said, honestly, there are great books, great websites, all that kind of stuff where you can pick up bits and pieces of information, but the most I have learned have come from the coaches I have had, and being able to ask them questions, say, hey, why are we training this way? Why are we doing this versus doing that? Why are we bringing calories up instead of bringing them down? And just being able to, like you said, bounce questions off, have that access to that knowledge, to kind of help figure out, hey, why is this? And what that will do is down the road is like you learn something from a coach, and maybe you don't have a coach down the road. Be like, oh, this is why we did that. I can now apply this on my own to help me maintain my results or continue to see results, or kind of because I know what works for me and I know why it works for me.
Yeah. Is there anything else you would like to add that you think is important?
No, I think that I think just kind of one thing to say is that a lot of people either hire a coach or buy a diet plan or sign up for a training program or something like that because they think that is what's going to fix any issues they have with getting in shape or body image or stuff like that. But at the end of the day, everything we do, it has to start with our mindset, with what we tell ourselves, with the way we look at things. So if if you're not continuously working on that and trying to learn and trying to become more aware of yourself, and just thinking you're going to solve it all in the gym or by following a diet plan, you're missing probably the biggest part of the picture. And just making sure that you're always kind of aware of things, aware of what's going on, aware of what you're thinking, why you find yourself doing stuff, and making sure that you're applying that to your program, to your progress as well.
Oh yeah, it's so foundational, and that's why I love the style of coaching that you have, is because you get that, you understand that, you live it, and you're able to
Mhm.
coach people in through that lens with that foundation, and to be able to help them create that balance and that consistency.
Well, I also had some good help with that too from you as my coach too. So,
Thanks. Well, where can people find you?
best place is going to be Instagram at Jorden Pagel. I can spell that JordenPagel. If you have any questions or anything like that, you can also email me, Jordan at jordenpagelfitness.com. If you have specific issues, questions I can answer, or maybe link you to an article I have. But yeah, those would be the two best places to reach me. What about you?
I am on Instagram at Ritual Coaching, and ritualcoaching.com, and Alicia at ritualcoaching.com. So thank you so much for sharing all of this, and for being here, and for helping us out.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. This has been fun.
All right, talk to you soon.
Bye.